Hello, nonverbal communication students. It's Ivy again, wanting to talk to you a little bit today about Chapter 10, the first part of Chapter 10. This is on nonverbal communication and technology, something we all use, something we are all probably relying on a lot more these days as we are spending more time at home, or maybe we're doing a lot more distance learning, remote learning than we have in the past. So I am very appreciative of technology. If something goes wrong with my phone or my computer, I have one of those freak out moments like, no! So we all, I think, are realizing that our devices are important, and the way we use them and how much we rely on them is probably evolving as we go through our lives now, starting in 2020. So when we think about nonverbal cues and technology, we have to think a little differently in terms of what qualifies as a nonverbal cue. Okay? Certainly, there are a lot of nonverbal cues connected with what I'm doing right now. Eye contact, facial expression, tone of voice, gestures, okay? The way I'm seated, the environment surrounding me here in my home office as I record these teaching videos for you. So we have to think what nonverbal elements are present, and there's some new ones. There's some different things to think about that we call nonverbal cues. For example, I'm recording this today at, let's see what my computer says, 1:34 in the afternoon. You may watch it at 2 in the morning. So when you process something, the time of that versus when the message is received at the other end, the timing of that is a form of nonverbal communication. It's chronemics as we study time, but it's also chronemics as affected by technology. These are asynchronous forms of communication. I record them at one time, you watch them at another time. Now, if you come to my office hours, which are currently on WebEx as well as face-to-face on Mondays and Wednesdays, but on Tuesdays I do them from home, and some of you have joined me for those office hours. That's a form of synchronous communication because I'm seeing you in real time, you're seeing me in real time, and we are exchanging messages, verbal and nonverbal communication going on. Okay, so that's just kind of a brief sort of an overview. The first section in this chapter we talk about is the ever-present cell phone. A few years back, I got tired of my students being so much on their telephones, just glued to those phones during my class. And I would look up, and some people would be paying attention and they'd be clued into the discussion, and other people would be texting away and buried in their phones. And that tells me they're not listening, they're not paying attention. I'm kind of like, why are you in class? If you want to go text your friends, go do that somewhere else. Don't do that in my class. So it got to a point where I was just really bugged by it. And so I took a box lid, some of those boxes that come and the lid is on the top. And so I took the box lid in and I walked around the classroom and I said, give me your phone. Put your phone in the box lid. I'm taking your phone. Just for a while, taking your phone. One guy was always on his phone, and he looked at me and he was like, I didn't bring it today. I'm like, Jason, you're always on your phone. Give me your dadgum phone. So he fished it out of his pocket and put it in there. Reluctantly, but he put it in there. So I walked around, I collected 35 phones, right? And I put them under the desk up at the front of the room, the computer desk, so they couldn't see them. And I said, I'll give these back to you at the end of the class. A bunch of them just stared at the desk like, my phone's under there. It took a while, okay? Then we took a break and they were like, can I have my phone during the break? I'm like, no, you'll be fine. I'll watch your phone. I'm staying in the room. I'll watch your phone. So when they came back in from the break, I said, what'd y'all do during the break without your phones? And they said, well, some of us talked to each other. Oh, really? You actually had a conversation with somebody rather than burying yourself in your phone? So I handed them back at the end of the night. I could no more do that little exercise in a classroom today than anything. There's no way I would pull that off. None of my students would surrender their phones. So much more of us is now in our phones. I would not ask, I would never get anybody to surrender their phones. That would be, that would cause trouble. And I just wouldn't do it. This was only 5 years ago. I did it. It was funny. Everybody gave me their phones. People would probably look at me this time and say, no, ma'am, Dr. Ivy, with all due respect, my phone is my property. It's my private property. It's my technology. I will keep my phone. I just wouldn't even try. And I can understand. It's just an inappropriate thing to do at this point. So much more of us is in our phone. I want you to think about your phone behavior. I want you to think about its presence and its importance in your life. Sometimes, some people believe that when we are texting someone, or certainly when we're talking to someone, we're kind of no longer in our bodies. We're in that relationship. Whoever you're texting with, you're in that relationship. This is another reason why it's so dangerous when we're driving, why there are laws against it. You're in this massive piece of machinery going pretty fast, fast enough to kill somebody if you hit them. And yet you're really not in your body, and you're not in your car or your truck or your SUV. You're in that relationship because we have been taught when we communicate with people, there's relationship, there's exchange going on, even the most basic, banal kind of, hi, how are you, good to see you kind of stuff. We're in that relationship. We're not in our bodies, we're not in our cars. If you're in your phone, you're not in my classroom. Your physical body may be there, but you're really not there. So I want you to think about how much time and effort and energy you spend on your phone. Is that the best way to go about your time? Does your phone distract you from getting work done? I bet you it does. It does all of us. I mean, my phone is right over there. There's a bunch of texting going on with 8 of my best women friends. We're all in this loop right now, so I'm distracted by it too. But I'm not looking at it and checking it while I'm doing this, right? So I have to think about my boundaries about my phone as well. What nonverbal communication clues are being given to people when I am on my phone? What nonverbal cues am I giving through my phone? Okay? So those are things to think about. For example, if you send a text to a friend at 1 a.m., what's the message behind that timing versus you sending a text to a friend at 1 p.m.? That's a nonverbal cue. If I send a text or an email, and sometimes I do this because I'm such a night owl, and so I'll send an email and I'm like, oh my God, I sent that at 12:30 at night because I'm up and working and my energy's high. And somebody else is sound asleep, and I send an email. I've really tried to work on this, not to send emails or text messages at really weird hours, just because that's when I'm up and I think of something and I'm like, oh, I need to send, da-da-da. The timing of these things is important. If you send a 5-paragraph text and you get a thumbs up emoji in response, or you get a K or an OK, or you get a 2-word answer, the length of a text message is a nonverbal cue. Yes, it's words, but the length of the message is nonverbal. So this is the way we have to think about nonverbal cues in technology. Okay? Some of them are very obvious. Eye contact, when you're in a Zoom or a WebEx meeting or something. Gestures, those kind of things. But the other kinds of things, like the timing when something is sent, the length of a message, how long it takes you to respond. Some of y'all like responses very, very quickly. Others of us take a time to respond because maybe we're not using our phones. We're not on our phones. We've been made to turn our phones off, or we've chosen to turn our phones off. So you send it and you're like expecting an immediate response, and it takes hours, maybe days. You ever waited days for a text response? That's nonverbal. How long it takes somebody to respond versus your expectation for how much they're going to respond and how quickly. So look at these things. There's some research in this chapter that says that when you are on your cell phone, you are a dangerous walker. I don't see as many students on campus these days, but in recent years, a lot of students are on their phones, all of y'all are really, as you're walking across campus. I've had to just basically hold my ground and sometimes say to somebody walking right at me, look up, look up, look up, look up, because they're buried in their phone and they're going to walk right into me. Okay, so it's a little game that I play. It's a little experiment that I do. But yeah, research. There's research in this chapter on a couple of researchers did a study on how inefficient a walker you are if you're on your phone. You are better walking from point A to point B if you are just listening to a message or if you're talking on your cell phone. But if you're texting on your cell phone, you're the worst walker possible. You have what they call a lateral deviation. You won't go straight from point A to point B. You start to wander. You start to move off course a little bit because you're focused on that phone and you're in that relationship with who you're texting or what you're reading if you're just reading, a news feed or your Twitter feed or something. So think about that. It makes you an inefficient walker to have that technology in your hand and to be using it as you're moving from point A to point B. So that's another part of this. I'm going to come back with you and talk a little bit more about some of the things connected to texting, like emojis and emoticons. I don't want these videos to go too long and to tax your attention level. So I will close for now and we will pick it up in a little bit. Thank you so much. Bye.